Hi friends and welcome! Let's get some help from ChatGPT to kick off this course. We'll say, write a humorous introduction for a course about ChatGPT. Use 2 sentences. Welcome to the ChatGPT course, where the only thing funnier than our jokes is the AI that generates them. Get ready to learn about the language model that will have you laughing out loud, or at least typing LOL. Thanks for that, ChatGPT. Hi everybody, I'm Amber Israelson, and welcome to this big picture course about ChatGPT and generative AI. You've probably seen the headlines. Everybody is obsessed with this mind-blowing ChatGPT AI chatbot. It's the hot new thing in tech right now, grabbing the interest of investors and causing an explosion of other AI-based companies and products. It's kicked off an arms race of sorts, and its popularity has even surprised the folks at OpenAI who created it. And it's already set several records for user adoption. Just to give you some concrete numbers on that last point, to reach 100 million active users, it took Instagram 30 months, or about 2.5 years. For TikTok, it took 9 months. ChatGPT had 100 million active users after just 2 months. It's really pretty incredible. Some people are calling this the iPhone moment of our time, or the internet or email moment of our time, that it's going to change everything. So you definitely need to understand it and get ahead of the curve with this one. But what exactly is ChatGPT and generative AI more broadly? How does it work? How can it be used? And how can you use it in your job? In this short course, we'll answer those questions and give you some practical tips for how to take advantage of this exciting new technology. Let's start with some terminology. Generative artificial intelligence, or AI. This is any type of AI that can be used to create new text, images, video, audio, code, or synthetic data. Let's see some examples. DALL-E is another AI product created by OpenAI, and this will generate images for you based on descriptive text that you provide. Let's say we want an oil painting of a cat in space with a cup of coffee. Let's see what we get. And ta-da, there we go. There's our cat in an oil painting style. Or maybe something a little bit more relevant to real life. Let's do a photo of a man wearing a t-shirt, walking in a city, looking at his phone. And there we go. So a really great example of generative AI for images specifically. There are also tools for audio and music. Here's just one example, Ecret Music. Let's say we need a specific soundtrack for a video we're creating or a game or something like that. So maybe we want to do travel is our scene. It should be a happy mood. And for genre, let's go with cinematic. And we'll say create music. And here's some brand new music based on the input that we've entered here. We can also adjust things like the tempo, maybe bump that up to a 1. We can change the melody, backing, and a lot of other things here. Okay. So those are just a couple of examples. There's tons and tons of these tools that are popping up everywhere using AI to create new or novel content. So that's basically what generative AI is. I do want to spend just a second contrasting that with another type of machine learning or AI that you might be familiar with that's used pretty extensively today, and that's discriminative AI. This type of AI analyzes or categorizes existing data. It can solve problems like determining if a transaction is fraudulent. So you feed in data like a merchant, amount of a transaction, where the transaction took place, for example, and this type of model can tell you that yes, this looks like fraud, or no, it doesn't. Or image recognition is another common example, like recognizing handwritten digits. We input a handwritten 2, we iterate through various layers of that to pick up the patterns in that number, and then we say, aha, that looks like a 2. So again, just analyzing or categorizing existing data. That might be what you're thinking about when you think AI or ML, but generative AI is a whole new category that's creating or generating new novel content. Now that we know what generative AI is broadly, let's talk about ChatGPT specifically. It's perhaps the most popular example of generative AI today. If you're curious, it stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's a language model that interacts in a conversational way, meaning you can ask it questions and get human-like answers. It's a super smart chatbot, basically. It's developed by a company called OpenAI, and the current version is 3. Let's see some examples of what it can do. How about explain calculus for a 5-year-old? And here we're going to get a very human-like answer written in a level of detail that somebody very young, a 5-year-old, could understand. Let's try another one. Write a short paragraph explaining the history of computer science, and we can say things like use a friendly tone. Let's see what this gives us. And here, just like we've asked for, we have a short paragraph about computer science in a pretty friendly tone. So how is all of this possible? ChatGPT is trained on a massive, massive data set, basically scraping the web and learning from all kinds of data, things like news articles, research papers, books, documentation from software or user manuals, sites like Wikipedia, scholarly articles, and a lot more. So all of that data is fed in to train this model to make it really smart. But what exactly does that mean? How do you train a computer? Well, kind of the same way that you quote-unquote train a human. Thinking back to when you were a kid, you were learning the alphabet and spelling and such. You learned the letters, lowercase, uppercase. You learned how to recognize them, how to write them, how they sounded, and eventually you put them together to mean something. Basically, you identified patterns, which is what machine learning or AI does. For example, if I see the letters like this, A-M-B-E, I have learned, or I've been trained to think, oh, I bet the next letter in this sequence is an R, forming a complete word, amber. And you can extend from letters and single words to full sentences. If I see the text, I hope this, since I've seen that so many times, I've learned or I'm trained to want to complete this sentence with finds you well. And ChatGPT basically does the same thing, but on a much larger scale, having been trained with a lot more information than a single human brain. It's super, super smart. So it's taking all the information that's been fed to it and basically predicting what word or sentence or paragraph or line of code, for example, would come next. And that's an important point. ChatGPT doesn't do an internet search for answers. Instead, it predicts answers based on its training data. So this is not a new search engine, though some people would argue it could become that, replacing the popular search engines that we have today. But under the covers, it's not actually doing a search. It's just using the data that it was trained on to predict what comes next. So let's do a quick recap before we move on. ChatGPT is a language model used for human-like conversation, a really smart chatbot, essentially. It's a type of generative AI that creates new content. It's become massively popular in a very short amount of time, with the potential to disrupt how we work, learn, and interact. It's definitely a technology you want to understand and know how to use for your benefit. And that's where we're heading next. Let's talk about how to get started with ChatGPT.